In this video we are going to be exploring the meaning of the story of Jephthah sacrificing his daughter to God in the Bible. Jephthah wants to win a war, so he makes a vow to God. And Jephthah vowed a vow unto the Lord and said, If thou shalt without fail deliver the children of Ammon into mine hands, then it shall be that whatsoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the children of Ammon shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. Judges chapter 11 verses 30 and 31. Jephthah carelessly says he will sacrifice whatever comes out of his door first in exchange for victory. Throughout this video I am going to be comparing the story of Jephthah sacrificing his daughter to the fairy tale Rumpelstiltskin because they have the same meaning. And I think it is easier to see the meaning when you look at both stories together. You may say that Rumpelstiltskin is just a child's fairy tale and has nothing to do with the Bible, and although it is true that Rumpelstiltskin has nothing to do with the Bible, I think by the end of this video you will see that both stories do indeed have the same meaning. So we have already seen that Jephthah carelessly risks his daughter for a victory. In the story of Rumpelstiltskin, a man who is a poor miller wants to impress the king. So he tells the king that he has a daughter that can spin straw into gold, and by doing so he puts his daughter at great risk. The king demands that the miller's daughter spin straw into gold for him, and if she can't she will be punished. And if she can she will be forced to marry the king. You can see that in both stories the fathers want something for themselves, but instead of risking their self they both risk their daughters instead. Neither one of the daughters has anything to gain from either scenario, nor do they get a say in the matter. But it is the daughters that have to carry all of the burden. You can also see that in both stories the fathers seem to look at their daughters as property instead of people. After vowing to sacrifice whatever comes out of his door first to meet him when he gets home, Jephthah arrives home to find that it is his daughter that is first out of the door to meet him. And Jephthah came to Mizpeh unto his house, and behold his daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and with dances. And she was his only child, besides her he had neither son nor daughter. Judges chapter 11 verse 34. In the Bible Jephthah tells his daughter that he is upset that it was her that came out first to meet him, but I think Jephthah knew it was most likely going to be her that was first to meet him. I think anyone that has kids knows that they are usually the most excited and have the most energy. And his wife and any servants that he had would probably be busy doing something. So I believe that when Jephthah first made the vow he knew it was most likely going to be his daughter that was first out of the door. We have seen in the story of Jephthah from the Bible that his daughter is an only child. In Rumpelstiltskin the miller's daughter is the only child of the miller that is mentioned in the story, suggesting that she is also an only child. So not only does the fathers carelessly running their mouths jeopardize their daughters, but it also puts their entire lineage in jeopardy because they have no other children to carry on the line. When Jephthah tells his daughter that he vowed to sacrifice her to God, she agrees to be sacrificed. And she said unto her father, Let this thing be done for me. Let me alone 2 months that I may go up and down upon the mountains and bewail my virginity, I and my fellows. Judges chapter 11 verse 37. So after agreeing to be sacrificed, Jephthah's daughter asks to have 2 months before she is sacrificed so she can bewail her virginity. Meaning she wants to mourn for the children that she will never get to have. So not only does her father deprive her of her own life, but he also deprives her of all of her unborn children's lives. And I think you can clearly see that Jephthah's daughter is more concerned about the loss of the lives of any children that she might have had than she is concerned about her own life. And again in Rumpelstiltskin we see the same thing. The king puts the miller's daughter in rooms full of straw and demands she spins the straw into gold by the next morning. Rumpelstiltskin appears and offers to spin the straw into gold for her in exchange for her jewelry. But after she runs out of jewelry she still needs one more room full of straw spun into gold. So Rumpelstiltskin tells her he will do it if she agrees to give him her firstborn child if she ever has children. She doesn't have any choice, so she agrees. So we can see in both stories the fathers deprive the daughters of not only their own lives but also the lives of their unborn children as well. But there is one very big difference between these two stories. And that is that in Rumpelstiltskin the miller's daughter gets saved by Rumpelstiltskin. He spins the straw into gold for her. And when the king gets the gold he makes the miller's daughter queen. And when she does have a child and Rumpelstiltskin comes to collect it she tells him she will give him all her wealth if he lets her keep the baby. Rumpelstiltskin refuses her wealth but tells her she can keep the child if she can guess his name. Which she eventually does guess his name and gets to keep her baby, and this is why the story of Rumpelstiltskin can hide as a children's fairy tale. But Jephthah's daughter is not so lucky. In the biblical story of Jephthah his daughter does not get saved. She dies and any children she might have had die with her. And it came to pass at the end of 2 months that she returned unto her father who did with her according to his vow which he had vowed, and she knew no man, and it was a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went yearly to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite. 4 days in a year. Judges chapter 11 verses 39 and 40. So besides the endings I think these two stories are pretty much the same. And I think they teach the same lessons. All my life I have heard people making promises that if they get a certain thing then they are going to do something in return, and most of the time everyone knows that they are not going to do what they promised they would do, but it doesn't matter because there is no one to hold them to their promises. But in the story of Jephthah he makes a vow to God, and God has infinite power and can hold Jephthah to his vow. And even though God never actually appears in the story and God never accepts Jephthah's vow, nor does God ever tell Jephthah that he has to keep his vow, Jephthah is so scared that he might be held accountable for something that he decides to kill his daughter just to be on the safe side. In Rumpelstiltskin the miller is held accountable by the king, and the miller's daughter is held accountable by Rumpelstiltskin, who has supernatural powers. He can appear and disappear, and he can turn straw into gold. He also seems to have knowledge of everyone as he appears to the miller's daughter because he can hear crying and knows she is in trouble. So I think that Rumpelstiltskin could hold someone to their vow if he wanted to. And I think that both stories are to make people stop and think before they talk, because you might be held to what you say. I also think that there is another lesson here as well. If you look at the two fathers and the kind of men that they are, you will see that they were willing to sacrifice their daughters for their own selfish gain. They don't really seem to care about anyone but themselves. And if you look at the two daughters and the kind of women they are, you will see that the miller's daughter was willing to give Rumpelstiltskin all of her wealth as queen to keep her child. And Jephthah's daughter doesn't concern about her own death, she only mourns for the loss of her unborn children. And both the daughters sacrifice of themselves to get their fathers out of trouble when it was the fathers that caused all the trouble in the first place. The daughters are selfless and care a lot about other people, and the fathers are selfish and only care about themselves, but it is the daughters who end up paying for their father's selfishness. I think this is very true in life. If good-hearted people are not careful, selfish people will ruin their lives. But there is one more thing that I wanted to discuss about these stories. All my life people have always portrayed Rumpelstiltskin as the villain in the story. But I don't think that Rumpelstiltskin was the villain. I think that the father and the king were the villains and Rumpelstiltskin is the hero. If you really pay attention to the story you will see that Rumpelstiltskin first appears to the miller's daughter because he hears her crying and wants to help. The situation doesn't have anything to do with him, but he offers to help anyway. He spins the first room full of straw into gold in exchange for the miller's daughter's old ring that she is wearing, which seems to have no value and certainly is not worth a room full of gold. Then Rumpelstiltskin spins the second room full of straw into gold in exchange for the miller's daughter's necklace, which was also definitely not worth a room full of gold. But the greedy king wants a third room full of gold, and the miller's daughter doesn't have any more jewelry to trade, so Rumpelstiltskin says he will spin the third room full of straw into gold in exchange for her firstborn child if she ever has any children. But when the miller's daughter does have a child she offers Rumpelstiltskin all of her wealth instead, because now she is the queen and she is very wealthy. But Rumpelstiltskin doesn't take any of her wealth, he doesn't take anything at all. Rumpelstiltskin tells her that he will give her 3 days to guess what his name is, and if she can guess his name then she can keep the child and owe him nothing. So the queen sends her servants out to go around the kingdom and find as many names as they can and bring them back to her. But by the end of the second day the queen has not guessed Rumpelstiltskin's name yet. So that night Rumpelstiltskin sets a fire on the side of the road and he dances around the fire singing a song about the queen not being able to guess his name and that his name is Rumpelstiltskin. So as soon as one of the queen's servants hears the song they know that Rumpelstiltskin is the name that the queen needs and they go back and tell her. And obviously when Rumpelstiltskin goes to see the queen the next morning she knows what name to guess and Rumpelstiltskin lets her keep her baby. And it is because of this I think that Rumpelstiltskin is the hero in the story. Not only does Rumpelstiltskin go out of his way to help the miller's daughter but he does it in a way that lets her think that she helped herself. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my thoughts. Please like, subscribe and share and let me know what you think in the comments. And let me know if there is any part of the Bible that you would like my big-headed opinion on for future videos.